Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Model Black: How Black British Leaders Succeed in Organizations and Why It Matters, by Banda. Narrated by Patricia Grant. Publisher's note: in this audio edition, you will hear references to figures present in the print and e-book formats of the book. Introduction. As a black woman, I see things rather differently. I don't see you as black. Why not? I am black. I've never seen you as black. I've always been black. Owning my identity as a black British leader. It was the first time I had ever mentioned my colour in conversation with Tony. It was also the first time I had referred to myself as black in his presence. I had known Tony, a long-standing white friend and colleague, for years and never contemplated making any comment about my skin colour. I was concerned that any mention of my skin colour might make him feel uncomfortable and affect our relationship or my future work prospects. I also knew that comments around colour might make me seem like one of those blacks. One of those blacks you have to watch what you say around. Those blacks who played the race card. Those blacks who Tony could not conveniently relate to in the way he could to the white people who knew. However, I wish that instead of denying or dancing around my difference, my colleague Tony had felt able to talk about it with me. I wish that he had the vocabulary and the confidence to discuss what being black in the workplace meant to me. He might have begun to understand how much of myself I felt unable to bring to work. This self-disclosure represented a pivotal moment in our relationship. It was also a turning point for me. I began acknowledging my colour and my difference to white people in a way that I had never done before. I was talking about a part of me that had always been there, but it was a part that I had chosen not to speak about to my white colleagues. I was in my mid-50s, a relatively successful black woman with 5 degrees, including an Oxford doctorate. Yet I felt uncomfortable about fully owning my blackness among white colleagues. Not any kind of white people. These were typically people I felt could impact my ability to earn a living. I learned very early in my career that referring to my race at work was dangerous for career progression. I once corrected my white manager on his inappropriate language use and was thereafter referred to by the team as PC, politically correct Banda. The situation escalated, and their boss, a well-meaning director, warned me, "Barbara, if you keep saying things like that, no one on the team will want to work with you." Recognizing that commenting on issues of race at work was met by mockery, defensiveness, or pity meant that it was so much easier not to talk about it. I could be black as long as I adopted the kind of black identity that white people felt comfortable around. Life became much easier for my colleagues and me when I behaved like one of those blacks who were easy to work with, did not call out unsavory comments, and, consequently, did not negatively affect the working atmosphere. So, despite countless other occasions when I could have taken offense, I eased on through most of my career as the smiling black lady who never seemed bothered. By 2017, I was getting tired of being that woman. I quit my full-time position as a professor of practice to work for myself and discovered the delights of very occasionally talking about being black. I noticed a distinct change in the atmosphere when I did it with people who had known me for a long time. Not necessarily unpleasant, just different. Nevertheless, there was a refreshing sense of being more myself when I raised it with a new contact. I knew I needed to be extremely cautious and very selective. I still wanted to earn a living. I was much more attractive to clients as the black lady who was not too black than as the black lady who might be one of those blacks. The murder of George Floyd in 2020 triggered a global outpouring of grief, anger, and a sense of injustice. Black people everywhere told their stories about being black amid a tsunami of interviews, reports, and articles. Many of us with longer memories feared for those black British workers who were telling their stories. We hoped they were not foolish enough to be too honest. In the wrong organizations and contexts, too much self-disclosure would surely backfire once the media energy had moved on to the next newsworthy topic. Once my process of self-disclosure was underway amongst my colleagues, there was no going back. I have noticed an impact on those relationships that were previously safe. I spoke about my Black experience with a colleague who now frames much of her conversation with me as, "we white people." It sounds a bit strange. Maybe it sounded odd to her when I referred to my being a Black person. But she is trying to navigate her new understanding of who she now thinks I am. Though I keep reminding her that I am the same person I always was. I simply want to share more of who I am with her. Reflecting on my career, I realize that I have been managing my career as a Black professional. What I mean by that is that I had consciously or subconsciously chosen not to foreground my race. This strategy enabled me to successfully navigate my workplaces as a Black woman. It kept me safe and white people comfortable. My brother, Professor Robert Beckford, took a different route. Robert has lived his entire career as a professional Black, foregrounding his race and vociferously advocating for Black British people. The research for this book indicates that successfully navigating public and private sector organizations in Britain almost always requires Black people to behave as Black professionals. Further, most Black leaders agree that the moment a Black leader can become less Black professional and more of a professional Black is either after you have become successful enough to speak out or at the point when you no longer have skin in the game in the organization. The model Black, how Black British leaders succeed in organizations and why it matters, represents the beginning of my transition out of being a fully fledged Black professional. Does this public self-disclosure make me a professional Black, or is there a middle ground? This self-disclosure means three things are certain. First, doing it feels good. It feels as though a burden has been lifted. There is a sense of freedom that comes with leaning into all of who you are. Second, there is a real prospect of being judged and misunderstood. Third, making this shift in such a public way means there's no going back. Once you have talked publicly about your race, you cannot pretend that you have not done it. There is no going back. This may result in certain doors no longer being open to me. There may be new and more exciting doors, but some will have closed irrevocably, and I may never know what they are. In writing this book, I thought hard about whether my self-disclosure and the disclosures by Black leaders were necessary. Were we revealing stories that could be used to punish, diminish, or even manipulate us in the workplace? However, like bell hooks, I feel that this openness has the power to heal and to make new growth possible. These revelations have all been put forward in the service of fostering greater understanding and advancing inclusion. Why I wrote this book. For over 20 years, I have trained senior leaders in leadership, strategy, and change as part of large, often complex global leadership development initiatives. I became a professor of practice at a global business school. As part of this work, I have been privileged to travel to wonderful locations, indulge in delicious food, and connect with the most talented people. These individuals are well-educated, highly motivated, and, by and large, wonderful human beings. Interacting with leaders has taught me so much about business, leadership, and organizational culture. These leaders have shown dignity, strength, courage, openness, vulnerability, and humility as they seek to better themselves and their organizations. They have a deep desire to improve the culture of their organizations through gaining a better understanding of themselves and changing their behavior. What is always noticeable to me as a Black woman is that I rarely meet people who look like me. Of the many thousands of managers across a wide range of organizations and cultures I have worked with, I have encountered very few Black leaders. Even fewer of them are Black and British. It has never bothered me, Most of the groups I work with are predominantly white, and I am black. We still make deep connections, and I always endeavor to do my very best to help them develop further as leaders. This is the work I love, and I wish the same joy in their work for all participants that I interact with. There is, however, one blind spot to these interactions. In these mainly white rooms, I have noticed that the few black leaders I meet often request to speak privately with me. Black leaders value the opportunity to share one-to-one what it is really like for them in their organizations with someone they feel understands their daily challenges. Often, they want me to know that although they have been selected for a prestigious leadership development program, it does not mean that they are not struggling with the daily weight of being visually different in their organizations. They wanted to reveal what they were doing to succeed. They just did not want to do it so publicly. This book seeks to share experiences like theirs. The Model Black: How Black British Leaders Succeed in Organizations and Why It Matters, contains honest stories based on interviews with 30 successful Black British leaders. These are, in the main, leaders outside of the limelight, like me. They have got on with doing a good job, finding ways of navigating British workplaces as a black person in organizations where most of the people at their level do not look like them. These leaders do not view themselves as victims. They are surviving and thriving. In this book, black leaders share their voices and their challenges, the sacrifices and successes they have experienced as they have sought to navigate a white world. By navigate, I mean find their way through to the middle or top of the organization. Their agreement to be honest and open is in service of their black and white colleagues, and with the intention that we can all become more comfortable talking about the issue of race at work, and, in so doing, create true merit-based workplaces. Some of the leaders have chosen to be named in the book. Others wanted to be anonymized. In both cases, their shared hope is that by publishing their real stories, they will support organizations to become more inclusive to people who look like them, people of Black African, Black Caribbean, and mixed-race heritage. It is important that, amid all the noise around race and Black Lives Matter, these often silent individuals are heard. These leaders' stories offer insights into the Black experience that might help move the inclusivity dial by even a tiny amount. The aim of this book is to offer new ways of thinking about Black people at work that help us all have different conversations. It seeks to offer a new paradigm for understanding the Black British experience. It is the book I would have liked my colleague Tony to have read. It represents my contribution towards creating more inclusive workplaces, spaces where Black leaders can perform at their best. My intention is to shine a light on the experiences of Black people in a way that contributes to a positive conversation about race at work. I am mindful of my daughter's words. My middle girl pleads, "Mommy, please don't write another book about how awful it is to be Black. We have enough of those." And my eldest, who insists that this book be suitably layered in a way that discusses the complexities and multifaceted nature of being Black in a British workplace. To this end, I am delighted to introduce you to the stories and perspectives of the Black leaders in organizations across Britain. Together, we will peel back the layers and share the complex realities and how we successfully navigate our organizations. My hope is that as you listen to this book, you are able to suspend judgment and put aside any preconceptions you may have of what life might be like for Black leaders in organizations. I invite you to be curious about their experiences and reflect on what we might all learn from them. Written for white listeners, embraced by Black leaders. In the post-George Floyd era, many people want a better understanding of the Black British experience. They want to know how they can support the broader cause of greater inclusivity in the workplace and in life more generally. This book is essential for business leaders in the private, public and third sector, human resources, HR professionals, students, and anyone teaching or mentoring Black students or leaders. Indeed, it is essential reading for anyone interested in understanding race and promoting inclusion. This book is intended for white leaders who are saying, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to say when understanding and talking about race at work. It is of broader interest to those interested in debates about identity and representation and how these relate to work. I set out to write this book for white audiences to offer them a new perspective on the Black leadership experience. I hope I have succeeded in this. However, the more I shared the content of the book, the more it became clear how much there is in it for Black leaders. They found it liberating to learn the language to understand, articulate, and frame their daily experiences. So I offer them the language of the model Black to express the multifaceted layers of Black leadership. Whilst this book is about the Black experience, it will also resonate with those seeking to understand the organizational experience of other underrepresented groups, such as women and those from the LGBTQ+ community, and how they can best support them. Please call me Black. In the weeks leading up to writing this book, a company invited me to coach a Black leader. When the white HR executive shared the leader's name, I suggested they were of Caribbean descent. The executive looked bemused. Actually, I have no idea, she responded. Maybe. Or African. I realized the importance of a deeper understanding of some of the nuances of what it means to be Black in Britain. Black, Asian, and minority ethnic or BAME is a blanket term that does not allow for the distinction between cultures, ethnicities, or countries of origin. I tend to agree with Sir Trevor Phillips, OBE, former head of the Commission for Racial Equality. He suggests that BAME and similar terms can be divisive and masks the disadvantages specific ethnic groups face. More recently, the controversial report of the Commission for Race and Ethnic Disparities also called for the term to be replaced. To conflate the perspectives and experiences of Black Caribbeans with Black Africans can be unhelpful. Even within a continent, grouping together, for example, Nigerians with South Africans can also be problematic. All the Black leaders I spoke to for this book considered themselves to be Black, whether they were of Caribbean, African, or mixed-race heritage. Black may seem all-encompassing. However, if we need a term, let's use Black, but let us also recognize its complexities. The term Black has been associated with various connotations over the years. In the UK, Black was historically used to refer to Black people of African descent and later expanded to include people of Asian origin. By the end of the 1980s, Black reverted to mean only those of African descent. Black became a political term adopted by those of African and Caribbean heritage because of its use in the Black consciousness and civil rights movement. For those who identified with it, the term was embraced as a label of pride and beauty. Consequently, being referred to as Black is a source of pride. I like being called Black. It describes my skin color, my heritage, and my pride. However, being Black describes only a part of who I am. I am Black, and a woman born and brought up in England. My parents are from Jamaica, and I describe myself as being of Jamaican or Caribbean heritage. I am also Black British. I am married to a Black man who describes himself as Zambian, not African. We have Black children who share a Black African and a Black Caribbean heritage, a box that does not exist when selecting heritage on most forms. It is either Black African or Black Caribbean, not both, and refer to themselves as Black British or mixed Black African and Caribbean. Two of my sisters' partners identify as white and British, and some of their children like to be called mixed race or of mixed heritage, and some of them prefer not to be labelled at all. I cannot remember when I stopped being coloured and started being black. I was the only coloured girl at school and university and became the only black woman at work. I was the only black graduate in the marketing departments of my first and second employers in the pharmaceutical industry. When I joined a global healthcare company in 1990, my new manager introduced me to the marketing director. Following a warm welcome, I left the room. My manager, who had stayed behind, chuckled playfully as she recounted the events after I had left the room. "She's black," the marketing director had exclaimed. Yes, I had noticed. I laughed too. Black is not a dirty word. It's part of who I am. We are not all black or white. In this book, I have chosen to talk about black and white in essentialist terms. We know that individuals do not belong to only one or other of these categories. However, I have done this intentionally for the purposes of writing a critique. When I talk about black, I am referring very specifically to black leaders who are African, African Caribbean, or of mixed African or African Caribbean heritage. There may be individuals who consider themselves brown, those of Asian or other origins who consider themselves physically or politically black. These groups are not included in my definition. I cannot and do not claim to write for everyone who considers themselves to be black. Indeed, there will be thousands of individuals of African and African Caribbean descent who also believe that I am not speaking for them. Black British leaders. Private, varied, yet similar. Books and articles on Black British leadership tend to focus on the most influential, or the most powerful Black Britons. The spotlight is on Black exceptionalism, Black people who are seen as rich, powerful, authoritative, or famous. There is real value in such articles, as they can help to break down negative stereotypes around Black Britons and provide much-needed role models. However, they do not focus on the thousands of successful Black professionals working in organizations. Their stories mainly remain hidden. These regular workers do not proclaim to be Black leaders. In many cases, these Black professionals may have made an active choice not to claim leadership. To do so would mean dealing with the additional scrutiny of both being Black and being in a leadership role. These Black professionals may not perceive themselves as leaders as they go about succeeding in their professional roles. Equally, they may not feel they have experiences others want to hear about. This book is intended to tell their stories of successfully navigating white workspaces. These stories point to the need for meaningful change in the ways in which Black people are perceived and treated in organizations if the organizations genuinely want Black people to feel included. Are Black leaders different to white leaders? In the workplace, Black leaders do exactly the same work as white leaders. Leaders lead people, processes, and expert functions. They manage change in a competitive and volatile world. They set direction and align and motivate people to achieve the organization's goals. Leading has been contrasted with managing, which is about staffing, budgeting, controlling, and managing the here and now. However, there is an intersection between the two. Leaders manage, managers lead. Like many leaders, therefore, the Black leaders interviewed for this book have an eye on the day-to-day tasks whilst focusing on their people and the broader strategic issues. But whilst Black leaders strive to carry out the same role as white leaders, there are several significant differences. When it comes to the work itself, Black leaders are doing the same job as white leaders, with an additional separate and deeper layer. The leaders interviewed for this book revealed much about the choices related to their color they make on a daily basis. Choices regarding their behavior, the way they approach their work, and the way they express their identity. The primary reason for this is that Black leaders are faced with stereotypes of Black people that permeate society more generally. Consider the research from Duffy et al. That 1 in 8 Britons believe that Black people have lower earnings because they lack motivation or willpower. Privately, propaganda and poorly written media remind people that Black men are threatening and Black women are angry. Many Black leaders also feel that they cannot honestly tell their full leadership story, as they do not want to offend the institutions they rely on for their living. A friend recently appeared in an article about successful minorities. She is the most senior Black person in a global engineering company. In the article, this Black leader described her route to senior management and praised her organization for its response to George Floyd's death and the subsequent Black Lives Matter protests. Privately, she told me how disappointed she was with the company's response. Successful Black leaders are often expected to sanitize their stories for the benefits of their white audience and their future career prospects. This is not something that they complain about. It is an unwritten rule of becoming and remaining successful. So it was unsurprising that the published work included a mere fraction of my friend's real leadership story. There is no uniform type of Black British leader, and thus no ubiquitous Black British leadership experience. Every Black leader has their own intersectionalities with class, gender, and sexual orientation. Some are educated abroad, others in the UK. Each Black leader has individual personality traits, unique ways of thinking and behaving. Black leaders may not like or even get along with each other. But is it possible that they share similarities in how they have navigated to the top? When I started this project, my knowledge was limited to my own experience and that of family and friends. This book reveals many more experiences, but only a small number of specific strategies that Black leaders employ to navigate the workplace and succeed. The business case for inclusion. There is a business case for inclusion and a moral case for inclusion. At face value, the business case would seem obvious. Teams with a diversity of thought are likely to develop a broader range of ideas and solutions. Indeed, the rationale for a diverse workforce, laid out by Conrad in 2003, still holds in organizations today. She argued that a more diverse workforce means that businesses that wish to attract and retain the best quality talent would have to recruit from all demographic categories. Secondly, a more diverse society together with a globalized marketplace and more diverse customer base means that businesses that employ a more diverse workforce will better be able to sell to a customer base made up of different cultural backgrounds. Thirdly, demographically diverse groups can outperform other groups in problem-solving and creativity tasks because they have a greater variety of information experience and perspectives. At first glance, there is now an increasing body of data that demonstrates higher financial returns from diverse organizations. A 2018 Boston Counseling Group study suggests that increasing the diversity of leadership teams leads to more and better innovation and improved financial performance, resulting in a 19% increase in revenue. The study reported that in both developing and developed economies, those companies with above-average diversity on their leadership teams report a greater payoff from innovation and higher earnings before interest and taxes margins. Their data showed that companies could start generating gains with relatively small changes in the makeup of their teams. Similarly, a McKinsey report established a correlation between significant levels of diversity in company leadership and a greater likelihood of outperforming the relevant industry peer group on profitability. The report also found that with respect to ethnic and cultural diversity, more diverse companies were 33% more likely to outperform their peers on profitability. People Management reported a study that analyzed around 600 business decisions made by 200 teams. It found that geographically diverse teams make better business decisions 87% of the time. That study also identified that business decisions were better when there was gender diversity and increased further where there was geographic diversity. Many companies have a diverse workforce, but they are not inclusive. As one leader told,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?